of her great friend, Donna. She has generously established an endowment to support this lecture series, and it is meant in many ways to broaden the view of our students. So before I ask her to introduce the speakers, let me just say a few things about what this lecture means for us. Those of us who are part of CCBC know we are a comprehensive community college, which means, and we have a slogan to represent this, that every one of us here counts. We invite everyone in. We serve a diverse community. Our classrooms are a microcosm of our communities. And so this is a special place. And we've made a commitment to global education that goes well beyond just hanging the international flags, which you see on all of our campuses. And what I mean by that is under the leadership, actually, of our colleague, Dr. Rebecca DeWitt. She is the director of CCBC's Global Education Program. So we have Fulbright scholars on our campuses. Actually, was it last week? We had 35 foreign dignitaries on our Catonsville campus. They come to CCBC to learn things. Now, that's a very special tribute to a community college. But our faculty have globalized the curriculum. Our faculty have served on State Department panels. So we're a college that actually takes a great deal of pride in our commitment to global education. And within our classrooms, and I think this is the most important part, with, oh my gosh. Thank you so much. It was that simple. We didn't even know. Thank you, Dallas. And you do. Very good. Okay. Well, this is much better. Within our classrooms, actually, we do celebrate the intersection of nations every year. We have probably somewhere in the 400 to 500 range of international students who come to CCBC. So on any given day, you could, in fact, find the nephew of an African tribal chief, the daughter of a Nepalese Sherpa, or a Vietnamese elder sitting next to the son of a doctor from one of our local communities, or a single mom from Dundalk. So some of our students wear burqas, some wear dashikis, some wear baseball caps and jeans, some wear three-piece suits. But in the hallways, you can hear Russian, you can hear Urdu, you can hear Thai, and of course you hear English. So this landscape suggests that every one of us must know, every one of us who works here must know how to interface with a wired, an international, and an interconnected world. Our college's reach is global, and precious to me is our commitment to educate students into a technologically literate, yet humane citizenry, able to thrive and not just survive in the world as a global village. So with that as a context, then I just bring us to today's topic, empowering voices, strengthening democracy. This is certainly an intriguing and timely focus, and it really does focus on the sanctity of the individual franchise. And I will just say from my own part, no matter how much family or colleagues attempt to draw me into political debates about who to vote for or whatever, I always say, no, I have one vote. And that one vote is precious. And you multiply that by millions and millions, and you get a democracy, which is what we revel in. So with pride and pleasure, I'm so happy to introduce our good friend, Attorney Sheila Murthy. And I will tell you, this is a talented, progressive, and a buoyant lover of life. She is an entrepreneur. She is a philanthropist. She is a founder. And as we said, she is the president of one of the world's leading U.S. immigration law firms. She is a woman who has excelled in the challenging area of immigration law. And it is through her generosity that we host this lecture each year, and helps us prepare our students for our commitment to seeing the world as a global village.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Oh, great. Come on, louder. Let's have fun. We're smaller. There's so many, right? It's great to see you all. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you, Dr. Curtinitis, for that beautiful putting everything into context of why we have this annual lecture series, the very reason in existence, the raison d'etre for CCBC. And I love the fact that it's such a global village and the way you describe it with the Sherpa and the African chief. I'm visualizing this little world village market that we all live and thrive in. And the vote, the importance of democracy, the importance of each of us as individuals, the right to vote. I think it's just so critical for us. It's always very important, more so at the end of the day, this is the greatest country on earth. I say I'm an immigration lawyer in the United States because I believe there's so much we can offer the world. We've been a world leader in democracy, freedom, choices, and the right to vote. We have been the world's largest democracy, and hopefully that will continue stronger and better with each and every one of you playing a role and participating in that venture. And to honor that, we have two amazing speakers, people who've traveled the world, who've contributed, who are really going to hopefully get us thinking. And when they share their life, their background, and their views on what we can continue to do and how we can continue to thrive as a democracy. I understand Dr. Hoda was supposed to be here in person, Dr. Hoda Zaki, but there was a family medical emergency that prevented her from being here. We miss you in person, but we know you'll be just as wonderful, vibrant, active, and engaging while on uh, while on the two screen. We are, of course, thrilled to have Dr. Gregory Malveaux here in person, so hopefully we'll still have a vibrant community either way. So let me introduce both of our speakers and then have each one speak one after the other, and then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end if you saw your outline. So Dr. Hoda Zaki earned her BA from the American University in Cairo, Egypt, and her MA and her PhD from Clark Atlanta University in Georgia. Her research reflects her commitment to civic engagement. She has published on the intersection of both literature and politics. Sure, if somebody spoke. In the writings of Octavia Butler and Shirley Graham Du Bois about how social movements impact activists globally. She also has great interest in African political philosophy and has participated in and has studied and written about the impact of COVID on voting rights right here in not too far from us, right here in Virginia. She has volunteered as an election worker in Frederick County, Maryland, and for 2 decades she was a chief judge there. Since 2012, she has traveled as an election monitor for the U.S. State Department of State, and the Organization for the Security and Cooperation of Europe, where she observed elections both in Asia and Eastern Europe. And then we'll change gears and talk about Dr. Gregory Malveaux, whom I had briefly met as he came in this morning. He's a longtime professor of English and college-wide study abroad at Montgomery College, and he's a co-chair of the statewide consortium for community college international educators. Dr. Malveaux has a BA from Rutgers College in New Jersey, a doctorate in education and administration from Morgan State University. It's not too far, around the corner. He's also an accomplished writer of books, most recently editing Cross-Cultural Narratives, just as recently as in 2022. Dr. Malveaux is also highly engaged politically. In November of 2024, after a long campaign, he was elected to the Carroll County Board of Education. And in recent years, he has been very active in supporting other statewide and local candidates for office. Let's give them a warm round of applause. Dr. Hoda, please take it away.
Good morning. Thank you so much for two wonderful introductions. And I am so honored to speak today to celebrate the exemplary civic engagement of attorney Murthy and Dean Reihl and to talk to you about election work. It is work that I've been doing for 25 years, and I feel more certain and more passionate than ever about its relevance. Empowering voices does indeed strengthen democracy. And I hope to convince you that citizens' participation in election work is critical for democracy because it makes elections fair and transparent. This morning, I'm going to describe how one global organization monitors elections in many countries and here in the US. But first, let me define some terms. There are many types of election work. You have election administrators and poll workers who are part of a system which runs elections. And here in the US, elections are run at the state and county level. Observers monitor but do not participate in the administration of an election. They can't count votes or help to run a polling station. Observers are sent by an organization, and, and many organizations send observers to assess the election's fairness. They have to apply for permission to observe. They might represent political parties or organizations like labor unions and civil rights groups. Their work is important because observation helps to ensure elections are run properly and it increases the public trust. A government can invite an international organization to observe its elections. International observers are also not supposed to intervene in the election or change its results. Today, I'm going to talk about
You're muted.
okay, sorry, it keeps on muting. Okay. 2024 is the year of elections. More people voted globally than at any other time in history. The United Nations estimates that almost 4 billion people voted in elections held in 72 countries. Approximately one half of the world's population voted last year. The results of these elections showed some striking similarities. Incumbents, by and large, did not do well. Some leaders had to step down, as in the United States, the United Kingdom, South Korea, Ghana, and Uruguay. Some ruling parties received setbacks in their majorities in their legislative bodies, as in India, France, and South Africa. Far-right parties made gains in France, Austria, Portugal, and Germany, among others. The global rejection of incumbency came about for many reasons: economic challenges and a greater concentration of wealth in the hands of very few people led to the frustration with liberal democracy and its apparent inability to solve society's problems. Citizens felt detached from political parties. As a result, social turbulence, polarization, and anti immigrant movements gained momentum around the world. Thus, the 2024 US election results show that here in the US, we are part of many worldwide trends. There is a global understanding of what elections should do for a society. This understanding became more concrete after World War II, a war that was fought to defeat Hitler and the philosophy of racial supremacy. After the war, the nations of the world adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. And in that declaration, there's an Article 21, number 3, which established some principles which became a cornerstone for democracy. And this was that citizens have the right to vote in elections to determine who their leaders are going to be, that elections should be genuine, that the right to vote is universal and every person's vote is equal to another's and should be counted equally, as your president just said. Elections used to be considered an internal matter for nation states and off limits to others. But this changed with the end of the Cold War, excuse me. The end of the Cold War in the 1980s, and international observation is now a norm of liberal democracy. It was believed also that elections should be free and fair, a label used to describe elections that are generally equitable and competitive. It is estimated that between 1960 and 2006, 1,800 elections were held in 141 countries, and of those, approximately 80% were observed. Observing elections has become sophisticated, and it is understood that elections are not a one-day event anymore. Observation of elections begin a long time before election day, and observing elections also begins before election day, during election day, and after election day, because we also have to look at the tabulation of results and to see if contestants accept the results. An observation mission assesses the quality of election laws, if the media is free to cover candidates and events. It looks at voter registration practices and the safety of election workers. There are manuals to guide how to do election monitoring. The United States government participates in election monitoring. It has sent monitors to many countries on many continents, from agencies such as the State Department, the Department of Defense, and the Department of Justice. US civil society organizations like the Carter Center, the NAACP, the Democratic Party, and the Republican Party also participate in election monitoring. The Organization for the Security and Cooperation of Europe, which is OSCE, monitors elections in many countries as well. It was established in the early 1970s. It is the largest regional organization in the world. It includes countries in North America, Europe, the Caucasus, and Central Asia. 57 member states comprise the organization, and these include Russia and the United States. OSCE promotes human rights and the rule of law. Its member states are expected to monitor other member states' elections and to be monitored in turn. When invited, OSCE sends a multinational delegation drawn from its members to assess the election and publishes its report on its website. It sends two types of observers, long and short term. Long-term observers live in the country for 3 months before the election. They interview key people in national and local governments, political parties, and trade unions. They travel to rural and urban areas. They monitor the media and social media, and they examine ballots. I have served as a short-term observer for the OSCE. We are sent to the country right before election day, and we stay for a total of 10 days. We are instructed to be nonpartisan. We are given a checklist of polling stations in a district, and we are expected to observe 10 polling stations on election day. We're given badges and arm bands to identify ourselves. On election day, we spend about 30 minutes per polling station. We stay to the very end of the counting of one polling station, and then we follow the election officials as they deposit their ballots at a regional collection center. Election days for short-term observers is about 16 to 18 hours worth of work. On election day, we short-term observers look for irregularities such as group voting, voter intimidation, inadequate check-in procedures, among other things. We see if the polling stations are accessible to the handicapped. We look to see if local observers have access to information, and we assess the general climate within the polling station itself. Elections around the world are similar, but they do differ. In Mongolia, loudspeakers are installed at the entrance of polling stations. Loud music is played all day long. Food vendors set up tables to sell food near the entrance of the polling station. Children run around, and it feels like a festival. Elections there are held in schools and on weekends so that voting does not interfere with the workday. Some countries use mobile polling stations where ballot boxes and officials are sent to hospitals, nursing homes, and prisons. In North Macedonia, our team followed one official to the home of a housebound voter who was able to vote in her bedroom because she was ill. The family were apple farmers, and they insisted, as hosts, that we drink tea with them and take apples home. In Albania, my partner and I observed a mobile polling station set up in a maximum security prison built by the European Union. It was brand new. I thought the prison voting went well. Later, we found that the prisoners were bullied by the guards, who put on armbands and taunted the prisoners pretending to be OSCE monitors like us. An election official from the prison polling station let us know because he wanted us to file a complaint, which we did. Sometimes the presence of observers helps to promote better elections and support local democratic initiatives. New areas of concern that impact the fairness and freedom of elections have emerged. The use of dark money, which decreases the quality of contestation, and artificial intelligence, and this enables cyber attacks, to name just two concerns. Some countries have developed national strategies to deal with these problems. In 2022, Sweden established an agency to increase citizens' capacity to identify dis and misinformation in a campaign that they called Don't Be Fooled. Some experts advocate looking for the digital signature on posted documents to distinguish between genuine and fake records generated by artificial intelligence. The United States government invited the OSCE to observe its 2024 elections. How did the OSCE evaluate our election, and what were its conclusions? Everything that I described about how OSCE monitors other elections was done here in the United States. OSCE sent 16 experts to Washington, D.C., and a team of 64 long-term observers who were deployed across the country for 3 months. They interviewed lawyers, judges, elected officials, election administrators, leaders of political parties, and civil society organizations. On election day, these people were joined by 250 short-term observers from 45 countries to the United States. A preliminary report of 23 pages on the election has been released by OSCE. It is going to be soon to be followed by a final report. These reports are accessible on OSCE's website. It's osce.org, and you will find all of its reports on all the elections that it monitors. OSCE found that the 2024 US election demonstrated the strength and resilience of US democratic institutions, notwithstanding a very polarized environment. The administration of the election was praised. Investments had been made to secure the integrity of the system. It was a secure system. Election officials were praised for their professionalism. Citizens had greater confidence in absentee voting. Voter education efforts by many groups were extensive and laudatory, and states which suffered hurricanes were given special provisions to vote. However, OSCE noted many areas that needed to be addressed. The report described the intense polarization and rampant disinformation. The number of women running for public office fell short of their population numbers. Intolerant language was used, which OSCE found to be aggressive and inflammatory. Other OSCE concerns included the unregulated financial contributions and election violence, which included an assassination attempt on candidate Trump and threats to election administrators. Drop boxes were burned in Washington and Oregon. The report notes the restrictions on voting rights in the United States. 4.1 million citizens in Washington, D.C. and U.S. territories do not have congressional representation. Residents of U.S. territories cannot vote in presidential elections. Felony disenfranchisement bars many who have served their sentences from voting. Such restrictions, the report states, contradict OSCE commitments and international standards of universal and equal suffrage. Many polling stations barred OSCE observers from entry, saying it was a form of foreign interference. These were not limited to southern states, by the way. They included polling stations in Connecticut, Montana, New Jersey, and Wyoming, and Virginia, among others. This also was not in accordance to OSCE rules. The difficulties in recruiting election workers, in part because of the threats made to them, was of deep concern. OSCE reported that in 6 states, election officials received packages of white powder. In other states, they received threatening letters, including in Maryland. My training as an election worker in the United States included the admonition and stipulation that I could not be partisan when I worked in a polling station. We can belong to a political party as poll workers, but our party affiliation is not supposed to affect our work. We are reminded that every vote is precious and should be counted. We are taught that partisan politics cannot influence how we treat voters. All voters must be treated with dignity and consideration. As an election worker, I have been fortunate not to have experienced any personal threats, but the possibility of violence at the polls is something that we now prepare for. As part of our training, poll workers and officials are required to develop a situational awareness, to read people and situations, and to focus on observing behavior. We are taught that workplace violence can occur for many reasons and what we have to do if it happens. If an active shooter enters the premises, we know that we must run, hide, or fight. Election officials and poll workers are essential workers who risk their lives to work in elections during the COVID pandemic. The United States is the oldest democracy in the world, and it has been a long journey to bring it to where it is today. Evolution and change will continue to happen, hopefully in the direction which will allow everyone the same voting rights. As old barriers fell, new ones emerge, and voting remains an arena of political struggle. The good news is that progress can be made, and especially at the state level, with Virginia being an excellent example. From being one of the most difficult states in which to vote, Virginia, over the past 30 years, has adopted a Virginia Voters' Rights Bill, which has made it one of the easiest states to cast a vote. For example, Virginia voters now have 45 days of early voting where they can cast their ballots at a polling station from 9 to 5 and on weekends, some weekends. This makes it easier for everyone to vote. I end and conclude by urging you to become involved in election work in any way you want to, as observers, poll workers, or administrators. There are many good reasons for you to work in this area. You are technologically savvy. You are energetic. The system needs you. The work is essential and it's a lot of fun. Your participation will strengthen democracy and improve our elections. Thank you so much. Okay. 2 claps. 3 claps.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hoda. And let me invite our second guest speaker. This one, it has a mic, so that one has.
And for my slides, just, all right, and it's just right.
Alex, do we have control of the slides?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a-
Thank you. Oh. Fire there. Very good. I'm gonna turn that so I can, but. All right, well, thank you so much for having me for the program here. I want to thank the president of the college. This is such a treat to be able to present before you. I had no idea you were going to be here as well. Of course, I want to thank you as well, Attorney Murthy, and this amazing program that you've been able to bring forth every year. So that's wonderful. And my colleague in the MCC IEC Consortium, Rebecca DeWitt, it's always a pleasure working with you, and you're doing amazing things at the college here. So we as leaders of community colleges who want to have study abroad and international ed thrive, you motivate me. I hope I motivate you, and we're going to continue to push that at the community college level and show them all that we do very well. We can do very well. So again, thank you for having me for this program here. And what I want to share with you today is a personal journey in terms of going into political office, although I see it more so as an elected official being the Board of Education. And just a little bit of my background, I appreciate it was already announced, but I am a professor of English at the college. I've been at Montgomery College for over 25 years. And also I run our study abroad program, college-wide coordinator, and as well as I co-chair, as I said, the consortium with Rebecca. And I'm now a Board of Education member for Carroll County. And so again, I present today because I'll be honest, I never ran for anything up to this point in terms of political office or an elected official. That includes student government. I did not, but we sometimes realize that we want to really contribute and be a part of something big and trying to help our communities. And so I hope that what I bring today also might inspire some to say that, anybody who wants to step up and do it has the potential to do it. And I will show you, a little bit in terms of my journey and how I got to that point. So let's see, pointing. So in terms of my entry into politics, or at least public office, I'm the father of a student in the public school system, and just felt like I needed to be very active in terms of his education. We moved from another county to come to Carroll County, and we moved because we wanted to make sure that my son had the resources that he needed He has special needs and so forth. And we researched and realized that Carroll County was an amazing fit for him and had the resources that we wanted. And coming to the county, I wanted to protect those resources, protect what we do well in that county. And so that drew me to be a part of the Board of Education, to make decisions, to assist and make sure that we continue to be thrive. Carroll County has usually typically top 3 in terms of academics, student scores and so forth. We have, in terms of the ratio between Caucasian and minority students, the most narrow of ratios in terms of academic achievement. And so, and on and on, we're doing amazing things. And so I wanted to protect that. That motivated me to be a part of this Board of Education for Carroll County as an educator, as a coordinator, and working at my college with budgets and so forth. I felt that I would be helpful in terms of running for the board, active in terms of the community with PTO or parent-teacher organizations and PTA, and just wanting to continue to be involved. I felt also I had the background, again, for the Board of Education in terms of being an active community member in Carroll County, the Boy Scouts of America, which my son participates in, and other activities. So that all motivated me to join or be a part of entering with the Board of Ed for our county. So important in that process in terms of electing or wanting to be elected is the hosting of political events and fundraising, which I had no experience whatsoever with. And before I even ran, I have a small farm, and I decided that I wanted to assist other political candidates on the farm, and with my wife's help, who has this degree in terms of being able to put together events and activities. I joined with her to try to help our community and those who are running on the farm, and having, different sort of like speakers and so forth, and have them introduced in the community. And that transition to eventually wanting to run myself, organize my own events. First event I ever had in terms of with the Board of Education and running for that was the kickoff event in October of 23. I went to decide to have it in Freedom Park in Sykesville and take a chance in terms of having this outdoors and so forth. I wanted, though, to just share with people that I wanted to have a grassroots sort of movement, and that, not only did they not know who I was as a person in the community, but just really getting my name out there in terms of grassroots, make it a fun family fundraising event, and advertise it as such. It was outdoor, it was festive. It's similar to like an Oktoberfest that I had, in order to be able to create funding for this and money. I created this where we had decorating of pumpkins, purchasing, face painting, raffles, and so forth, gift baskets, sponsors. All these things are necessary because also I had at the event food trucks and other expenses, but was able to do well and use everything at my disposal. I deployed the Boy Scouts, the troop, and I said, okay, I want you to go around the park here. There's athletic events. There are people everywhere. We want this to be just very organic and natural. The whole community can be a part of this. It's free of charge. Come, join us, and that's what I wanted. I wanted this real community feel. So I didn't charge a dime. People said, you have to charge. You're supposed to have people, at fundraisers, you charge them. I didn't. And fortunately, it turned out well. It helps to have strong speakers. So I had a senator speaking. I had a former delegate speaking. So you want to have strong speakers. I spoke after. I made a mistake. I spoke for 35 minutes. I should have cut that down by about 25 minutes, so people are like, oh my gosh, I'll try not to do that today, by the way. But you want to be short and concise, but it's, again, a learning curve. And so I had that event. A little bit later, I had a breakfast. This is where I did charge people to come in breakfast to meet with me in January of 24 at Greenmount Station in Hampstead. And it was not a great turnout. It was not a great event, not a great fundraiser, I'll be honest. And what I did to advertise this fundraising event is that I sent out an email, an invite to a good number of people But that's not good enough. You can't just send an email out and say, please come to this event. Here's your invite. You got to get on the phone. You have to call them individually. If you can text them, and you send a personal physical invite to each of them as well. And so that they can't miss it. They get it from 3 or 4 different angles. So that was learning that, okay, why didn't so many people show up? Well, you only sent out an email. So, I had to, swallow the loss of that one. And then it kind of all came together in the perfect storm by the next event, where is a tribute to Martha, Herbert, and Donna Savigny, who were former or about to be former members of the Board of Ed. 2 spots that were to be taken, those 2 had finished or had their terms were up. They had 8 years. And so I was running for one of their positions. And so I thought it'd be great to have a tribute event to them. And we did. And the venue was more of a dressy venue. It was very much in terms of just wine tasting and, beautiful historic Union Mills homestead, Westminster. And so, and I knew, okay, I need to contact people with physical invites, strong speakers, good food, and so forth. And so that all came together quite well. And by the end, when I had my final event, a race to the finish, with that event just a month or 2 before the actual election in October, this was more about just fun, celebratory, and this was taking place in a location where you could have kind of like bar tables and so forth, live music. People could try different beers and different speakers, and it all just came together again. So just different approaches as it built up in terms of fundraising and the political events that went with it. Aside from fundraising, you just want to, again, get together with community members and let them know who you are and your passion and your values. And so this also happened through neighborhood communities. I would get together with different neighborhood communities and talk about what are your needs, what are your concerns with our schools, your children, our community. Senior communities, also, I would recommend that you visit them, you talk to these individuals if ever, you were running for a position. Churches and church groups as well. Speaking with that group, teachers of Carroll County Public Schools. That one's a little trickier because, you don't want to get into making anyone feel uncomfortable or gather unless they truly want to. And it doesn't have to be a big public thing, but just really wanting to know what is it that they need? What are their needs and what can we, be done to help them? And as a candidate also, even meeting with homeschool groups, why are you, have decided that public schools maybe not for you? Is there a chance you'll come back? What is it that drew you away or would bring you forth? So these are important groups to even reach out outside of the whole fundraising thing, which I did. And then lessons that I learned from all of this. Lessons learned, these are the big things in terms of meeting with groups, fundraising and so forth, is that you just want to have also not yourself, but have strong speakers as well who are engaged. You want to follow up, as I said, with invited guests 2-3 times to make sure that they will come. You will see them. Quality food, people love to eat, give them good food. Sponsors, you tend to do well in terms of fundraising when you have sponsors. It's not necessarily how many tickets you sell, but who wants to sponsor as well. Silent auction baskets, people who are willing to give and want to help you say, well, could you please create from your business a basket or something that I can do and auction off? And speak briefly, again, knowing that, you don't want to take too much time with your audience. 10-15 minutes, that's enough. Tell them, like, what are your core values? What are your pillars? What do you plan to bring? What is it that you're, why should they elect you? There we go. In terms of running for local office, just continuing with this, you really have to reach out there. You have to get your name recognition out there, and your essential message out to in my case, the county of Carroll County, and make it countywide to those 160,000+ people. And so that happened through radio programs. I would get on the radio as well and speak. Podcasts as well, talk to people through podcasts. Publish, why not put my writing abilities to use? And so I published, and in particular, and it's, issues that people truly care about and impact us, and impacts this county too. I wrote an article, in fact, for the Carroll County Times and the Baltimore Sun, that too many unanswered questions remain with the Maryland Piedmont Reliability Project. And I saw, even driving up here, some of the signs. And so, with that, just relating that, my concern that this 500 kilovolt, 70, or not quite 70, 70-mile, building of these power lines are a concern. And for many groups, and the group that I brought to focus was our students. How close are these power lines crossing to our schools, into our parks and so forth? And are they passing too closely? What's the safe distance in terms of EMF radiation? And in my community, in particular in Hampstead, where I live, we have a school, Spring Garden Elementary School, that lands within 0.2 miles of the path of one of these intended power lines. That's just 1,056 feet away. Is that enough? Those are the questions we needed to know. And so I wrote on that article, and again, it impacts Frederick, Carroll, and Baltimore County. And so we need to look at issues that are important for our county, but also maybe have impacts beyond that and even statewide. So writing is important, publishing, letting your issues be known. Public debates are good. And so I had a number of different public debates. Didn't have public debates before either, but it's like, well, you've got to study, learn, research, and be ready and prepared. And so I did my best. But debates were recorded by our Carroll County. We have a media center, and the debates occurred on different sort of, I'll say, playing fields. You had the Democratic, club, who we debated for them, the Republican Club of Carroll County debated for them, the Student Government Association, and others. So great experience, helps you a good deal. And so all of these things are necessary, I would say, in running for local office. Let's see. Oh, yeah, sorry. There we go. So further, in terms of running for a local office, in my journey and just sharing with you, is connect with the community also in terms of, and this is just not leaving any stone unturned. I would go to every carnival possible throughout the county, town to town, hitting the carnivals, shaking people's hands, getting to know them, saying, I'm here, I want to support, talk to folks. But at the carnivals throughout the summer, parades, I was in them. I took my pickup truck and I created it, and it became a float, and you put your all your stuff on the float. You invite the kids and just, put your name out there as well. Door knocking. I knocked on many doors throughout the county, and took my son or other students as well, sometimes a teacher, but just wanting to, reach each of them individually by door knocking, probably not if hundreds, thousands of doors knocked on. Sign waving, getting outside and getting out there during commuting hours, the beginning of people's commute, and just waving and saying, I'm here with you, or coming home as well. These are all ways in which, in terms of getting your name out there, and it's important. And so all of this, though challenging, when it's correctly done, has good results. And will say I did have good results. All of these things led to 46,000 votes, or a little bit above that, and the highest vote count for Board of Ed for this time around, and actually winning 31 out of 49 precincts, with a race that included 4 different candidates. So these are my things that I feel are helpful, and anybody can, I won't say anybody, but most people can do this. You can step up and you can do this. I never ran for anything, but whatever it is that you're passionate about and your skill set that you have, you should go for it. And it just happens to be my journey. Just going a little bit further here, while serving now, and it's only been a whopping couple of 3 months maybe. This happened in November, so it's been 3 months on the board. So I don't have great experience, but I'll tell you so far what this has meant in terms of serving in local government. You better have good time management, for one, and so expect more than what the job advertises. Expect more in terms of time management. So, you know, okay, you may be told there's a certain amount of meetings and such, but if you really want to do it well, expect to do more meetings, meet with people outside of the required meetings and such. And so I do have like scheduled meetings with different board members in central office and such, but you must go beyond that and go out of your way to make sure that you meet with individuals, the individual finance person, meeting with the individual attorney, meeting with individual the person in charge of construction, curriculum, meeting with teachers. I mean, it's, advertised in with the Board of Ed maybe as part-time. It's more of a full-time job if you're doing it correctly. And so you have to budget that time and be willing to do that and make that sacrifice. And hold down your day job as well. But, you have to have that time management. And you have to make time to definitely meet with community members. Um, I'm a liaison for 9 different schools in Carroll County, so I make sure that I'm going to visit those schools and talk to, the principal, the teachers, visit the students and so forth. I'm also the person who would be in charge of certain county committees, and the committees report out to us the state of things going on throughout the county and CCPS. So that's part of the job and serving with this local government. Um, I don't forget those who helped me to get me into the right position. And so I want to visit old friends as well. So I'll go back to those who support me as a candidate and to their clubs, their businesses, their talks, and say, yeah, I'm going to make time for that because you're the reason, a good reason why I was able to get to the position I was. So you have to make time for that. And you have to understand important local and state issues as well. What is going on in the county, what's going on in the state as well. Which brings me to this idea, a big issue, and I won't say issue, I'll say a big focus going on right now is that we are living in unprecedented times in terms of we have something called the blueprint for Maryland's future. And so part of the reason why probably in the last 3 months when I took on the position with the Board of Ed, it's probably been, from what I've talked with past board members, unlike what their experiences have been, because I've had to learn a lot of information on the fly very quickly because of the Maryland Blueprint, a plan that we have throughout Maryland that says that we have to follow certain rules and regulations. This was voted into law. And so we have to put our resources into special silos or buckets that are mandated with the blueprint. Every county does have to do it. So rather than a single bucket or amount per student, per pupil that we distributed, now there are certain, rules that say you will need to make sure that you also give another or a percentage of that money to English language learners, which we call compensatory education as well, or I'm sorry, compensatory ed as well, which is students who maybe are lower income, they qualify for free and reduced meals. You get another bucket or group that is special education, so we now have to put monies in certain pots and budget and so forth. And we happen in Carroll County to have a budget deficit, quite a budget deficit, I'll say. And so learning about this is very important, and that's just one of the things, but there are different things. And so I end this in saying that you must have thankfulness. I sure do, in terms of, again, if you ever are running for something or you're wanting to get involved, that it's, again, you want to make sure that it's a team effort. The results that come with your success will come from a community effort, a team effort, and that gratitude for volunteers must be there. I have hundreds of volunteers. They're the ones also who are door knocking. I can't do it alone, and sign waving and going to the polls and just working very hard. So with that in mind, that allows me, motivates me to also serve our community well. Thank you for this time.
Okay, on behalf of everyone, let me thank you both speakers for your thoughtful insights on this very important topic. Now we are open to the Q&A session. So if you are virtually in the meeting, feel free to write your question in the chat box. And then if you're in the audience, feel free to ask questions directly to the speakers. I'll be happy to give you a microphone.
Thank you. So for you, Greg, in terms of wanting to stand, he said yes. The audience is saying yes. So I guess when you said you need to have a passion for what you do and you enjoy doing what you do, that was going to be my question is, so, if you stand for elections, obviously you're doing it. It's not all about, getting known in the community, which is a side benefit, or power, which is again a side benefit, influence. But what was it that was motivating or so passionate and so important that you felt that you could maybe do it differently or better or in a different way, be able to take up a leadership role and truly make an impact in your community? Because like you said, it's a huge commitment of time, effort, energy, money, resources, missing time with your family and all of that to be able to serve and do public service for the good of the general community. Thanks.
Great question. So I felt like that I was kind of, building up to this. I've been an educator, for over 2.5 decades, from being a substitute teacher, teaching abroad, and now working at community college. And I've worked with students from K through 12, as well as, at the community college level. And so I just felt like I had the qualifications in terms of professionally to do this and do it well with the experience that I've had, and seeing how students, this is a motivation. I've been at the college for a couple decades and seeing that students' literacy declining, preparedness for college, for the work world declining. And sometimes technology doesn't always serve us the best. With, say, for now, we're working with artificial intelligence and our students producing the papers themselves, doing critical thoughts and research themselves. So seeing that motivated me in saying, I want to make sure that I can be a voice in our K through 12 so that when they get to this point, they have the foundation that they need. So that was motivation. My son being in school as well, a big motivation. And we even moved again from another county, in part because we wanted to make sure that he had the resources he needed. And so I guess when I came to this new county that did this wonderful job in terms of educating my son, I wanted to protect what they have in place in this county and what they're doing and doing it well. And so those are all things that certainly motivated me. So I commute from Carroll to Montgomery, and I said, well, I'll put in that hour plus whatever minutes, to do so, because it means a lot. And again, you do that for your children. Okay, this is best where he is right now. And so, and I truly enjoy my work at the college. I don't want to leave where I work. And so it's worth doing that commute. Mhm. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Dr. Zaki, we do have a question on the chat from Robert. What has been your most rewarding part of being an observer of election? You're muted, Dr. Zaki.
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so I like to travel and going to another country, even if it's just for 10 days, and even though it's not my schedule entirely, um, has been a wonderfully rewarding experience. But I think the most rewarding part is when you're an observer and you go to another country to observe. It's like you see things that that other people don't see. It's like the country opens itself up to observers. We've watched ballots being printed. We um, go into people's homes. We go into prisons, into nursing homes. So you get to see a different side to the country, and that has been really rewarding to me. And another thing is, there's so many similarities in elections. You go into a polling station in Mongolia, it's like going to a polling station in Frederick County. So you feel at home. I feel at home when I go to polling stations in other countries because there are so many sort of structural similarities. But I think the most rewarding thing is being able to delve so deeply into a country's system of elections, and then you meet interesting people. So I think all of that together made it worthwhile for me.
Thank you so much.
Got it.
So this question is for Dr. Zaki. Um,
Okay.
as an observer, and comparing the American election system to these other countries that you visited where it's much more accessible, um, has that given you a sense of kind of our system being anti-poor or anti, uh, where some people it's like, oh, you have to have the privilege to be able to get here to vote if your vote counts? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that question. I think comparisons are so important, right? So when you visit another country and you look at how people vote, it's not that I sort of say, oh, they're better than we are or we're better than they are. There are elements in everybody's each election system that made me stop and think. So prison voting, for example, that I observed in Europe. I left very impressed initially, and it that's I just sort of began to wonder, is prison voting, is that something that we can look at and adopt, in this country? And there is a movement to have prison voting take place in, I mean, it already is in some states, but to make it more. So there are some things that I thought other countries did better than we, like having elections on weekends at a time when we did not have a lot of early voting in this country. But now early voting is beginning to take off. So, the comparisons are not so startling now for me here in the US. I think one thing that I do think we can do a lot more in about is giving people the right to vote, congressional representation, people in US territories being able to vote um, in presidential elections. These are, when you deny people to vote in those elections, then you're denying them a voice. And so that really goes against what the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was about. So, yes, I think felony disenfranchisement is a very, very real issue that affects um, thousands and millions of people in this country. So, yes, there are ways in which we can vastly improve access to to the vote. We have had some success in equalizing the caliber of voting machines because in previous decades, economically marginalized communities had older machines, less reliable machines. So there has been an upgrade. There have been resources put into the system to equalize the vote. I remember when getting people to the polls was the biggest thing, like get out the vote, get people to the polls on election day. Now it's like, well, what about the machines that tabulate the votes? Do we have paper ballots or not? So yes, I think there are lots of ways in which comparisons can help strengthen our voting system here in this country.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zaki. And then I have one more question in the chat box
Sure.
from Professor Jewel Jackson. What are your concerns, if any, for future elections in the US? Are there, I apologize.
Concerns for violence in this
Okay, let me
country,
repeat that for you, Dr. Zaki. What are your concerns, if any, for future elections in the US? Are there concerns for violence in this country?
Yes, yes, I think there are concerns for violence in this country. We were lucky this election that violence did not happen, but yes, in the 2020 election, there was violence. And there was violence here too in 2024. My concerns have to do with the dark money and artificial intelligence, and the use of artificial intelligence and dark money really impedes free and fair elections. It decreases the quality of competition when you can throw large amounts of money into people's elections and you don't know where that money is coming from or who's giving that money. And even if you know where that money is coming from, it's not a level playing field for the contestants. So yes, I do have concerns, um, and hope hope that things will work out. But we have to continually urge people to get involved and promote change at the state and local level, because that's where a lot of the states, you can really determine a lot about voting at the state and local level.
Thank you so much. Do we have other questions in the audience? Okay.
Roger.
Can I
Okay,
just say one more? Can I say one more thing about concerns? I just thought about this. U.S. foreign policy is really changing at the moment, and the line of argument now is that the United States has to withdraw from many of its commitments to the international community, and I worry about its continued membership within the OSCE, because if the United States should withdraw, then we won't have the opportunity to observe other countries' elections, and the OSCE will not be able to come and observe our elections either. And that cuts off a valuable insight into elections in general. So let me just say that, yeah.
Thank you so much. One of the students, go ahead.
Uh, my question is for him. What are the some like problems or difficulties you faced at first?
I'm sorry, what difficulties did I face with what was that?
At first, like when you started
At the beginning of your
Yeah.
running
For
For the position.
boy. Let me count the ways. um, Name recognition. No one knew who I was. I'd been in the county for 5 years, and others have not only been born and raised there, but their family name is in that county. And so no one knows who I am. How are they going to get to know who I am? And so maybe taking a few chances. Before our main election, we have a primary and, an early primary election. And as a candidate, you can start to put your campaign signs out there early, right before the primary. Well, for our primary, it wasn't even going to appear on the ballot. There was not going to be a vote because there were only 4 of us, and 4 will automatically go through. So we weren't even going to be on the primary. And people said, well, you don't need to have your signs out there. And I was the only one that had my signs out there, my campaign signs. And they said, take them in. And I was like, no, this is free name recognition going on, and people throughout the county are seeing my name first. And I kept it up there for a while, even though some mocked me for doing so, because you're not going to have a vote for you. And they take them down, and then brought out my signs again, later for the actual election. So the first name they saw and the last name they saw was mine. And so knowing that I needed name recognition was a big thing to get over. And I think that helped. And just, getting your message out there, trying to go the extra mile. Like, again, my struggle was, people didn't know who I was. So I have to be on radio. I have to be publishing things. I have to be writing. I have to be in the parades. I have to be at the carnivals, everything, And so just working hard to make sure that my name is out there. And I think that worked and it helped. And to have volunteers who are willing to step up and assist as well, trying to get people to follow you and to become a leader, is not always easy, but must be done. So I hope that answers a little bit some of the challenges right off. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I got a question for Greg. I don't know if you know me, but I know you before because we have seen in some of the conferences together.
Yes.
But I got a couple of questions, very short answers probably. The position that you have within the Board of Education, is it, are those paid positions or you don't receive any, it's only volunteer? And the second question is, I know you talk about that and it's beautiful what you have done, but I wonder if with the divisiveness that we have right now in politics, if you have seen in the few months that you have been there, some of the kind of a confrontational attitudes that you may find because somebody's trying to put you into a specific spot, whether you are Democrat or Republican, they're trying to see where you fit in.
So mainly this is a volunteer position with Board of Ed. And so, we'll make 12,000. I'll just tell you the figure, but mainly I didn't join this to make that extra money. And I think I'm speaking for myself, but also I think fairly I can say for my colleagues that they're passionate about just doing good work, and it's not about the pay by any means. So it's mostly voluntary, and the time that you put forth into it is a good deal of time. And so you brought up the concern about divisiveness or being put into the box, and labeled and such. I understand that we are, in a for some of us a difficult period in terms of education and budgets and giving our students exactly what they need. And so we're all very passionate about wanting to do the best thing for our children and our schools. And so I kind of understand why people may attack and say, well, I disagree, and we can disagree, but I think we have to do so, and definitely in terms of a respectful manner. And as long as we, again, are trying to come up with ideas that put our children first, our schools, our teachers, and working through a budget. And, Maryland is one of the few states, if not the only, that is in a deficit right now, and other states are in a surplus, but we're in a deficit. So we're having a hard time in terms of giving all the needs, all the things that we would like for our schools. And so I just want to say, I hope that the divisiveness, the questioning, of intentions, that we all try to work together best we can, for a common good. That's really what counts. It doesn't matter what your party is, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Thank you so much. And then let's conclude with the last question. We had a very similar question for Dr. Zaki. Now that's question for you. What has been your most rewarding part of running for political position so far? You're very new for the last 3 months, you mentioned. Dr. Greg, that question is for you.
I thought you said Dr.
Yeah, Dr. Zaki answered
So-
almost the same question. So
Okay,
it's a
so
very
what's
similar
been the
question
most
to you.
rewarding part for running for a political position? It's nice to win. You really don't know. I mean, you just don't know, and you're working so hard, and you're saying, well, am I getting anywhere? Are they really, going to vote for me? So I was very emotional the night that I discovered I won, and not only that I won, but I had the highest vote count. Was just like, wow, what's rewarding though beyond winning is that I'm in the position to make a difference. I'm in the position to do good. Um, you know, that's all that it was about, was how can I assist? And in the way that I want to do this may not be exactly as others, but I like the environment where there is some maybe arguments, different opinions. We have to do that. We have to do this so we can come to like some sort of middle ground that seems best. But I like the fact that on the board, there is, you know, difference of opinions that we can work through. And so rewarding is like hearing other people's perspectives and really trying to absorb that, going to these schools and talking to these teachers and understanding what they're working through, meeting with students, you know, in the community, being in charge of certain committees. All of this is so rewarding in terms of I'm actually in a position to try to help. But first, I need to listen and understand what is really going on. How can I help? And then how's that translate to, as just one of 5 board members, talking to my colleagues to try to have them understand here's the issue at hand or issues. So just being in the game, that's the most rewarding thing.
Thank you so much. So on behalf of everyone attending in person and then online, let me thank both speakers for such wonderful speeches and insight about this important topic. And this concludes our event. So I wish you all the best. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon, and thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.